Says that.
I don't know about that one. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is still spinning on those ones and deuces, fam.
Fam, let me start out by saying that I'm fucking done tone policing myself in any way, shape, or form for these idiots that are never going to accept us. We were just having a discussion where Jonny said, oh, yeah, the word cucked comes from the incel community. And it doesn't. They use it. They take these words. They use them. But it comes from the S&M community. Just so we're clear here.
Cuck, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Cuck is definitely from the S&M.
100%.
Can't speak from personal experience, but friends.
Do these people use it? Of course. They use it and weaponize it. Doesn't mean now that we can't say these words.
Did Normie come from
SWB audio capture?
No, Normie comes from
not
a lot of people say different words. I've been saying Normie. I didn't. know it had anything to do with
I'm
these.
saying it originates there.
No, it doesn't. They
does.
don't have. So how can you say something originates somewhere? Do they have ownership?
No.
Okay, then it can't originate there. It's a word.
But there's like evidence of that, like
Evidence that
started
they
using
use it.
in a thread, right? That they're using it in a thread. It's not, at the same time, there's evidence that it's not being used anywhere else.
No.
So then,
What does that mean then?
What do you guys think?
I want to know. Yeah, but what does that mean, John? Like that we shouldn't
we
use
can't
it?
use
no,
these
I'm
words.
just saying
I mean-
that they're coming from 4chan. There's all this other racist stuff in there too. But like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but there's like
I have seen 4chan.
blatant,
Of
like,
course.
blatant,
Of course.
like fucking, like they
Yeah,
put
but they don't
imagery
have-
and stuff.
They
They don't have
have
kinda
control
stupid.
of the English language.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's where it originates from. It's
It
coming from
doesn't
people who
originate.
Us
also-
does not
from.
originate from that.
It
It
doesn't
doesn't.
originate from. What I'm saying is that they use it a lot.
Of course.
And they, when at the time that they were using it, it didn't come out to being used on Twitter until later, right? Because that's
No.
there's
no.
I could show you evidence for that if you want.
I know,
can
John, but I
do
think
that.
that's just still my personal opinion. That's a tactic used.
Yep.
I'm not
to-
saying. I'm just. All I'm saying. I'm not trying to tone police. All I'm saying is that the same. They're using those words. The same people that use those words are also posting like like the imagery and stuff of like monkeys and shit. Like I don't even want to talk about what else they're posting. and
Yeah,
stuff.
but they.
So what I'm saying, let me finish, is saying that they use those words, and I can show you evidence that it originated there.
But I
It
don't-
doesn't
then-
originate there, dude.
I'm
it
saying
doesn't.
that it originated community, not originate from there. All I'm saying is that they're saying they used it and then it got into the mainstream because other people come out of those boards and they use it in their normal everyday
So
conversations.
the reason
And
why
I'm
they
not saying
kind of
it's a bad thing to use those words. All I'm saying is that it's
SWB
coming from
audio
a weird
capture.
place.
Well,
Not
we wouldn't even mention
registered.
that if it wasn't the fact that it would be possibly a bad word used by these certain racist people who do use the word. When you kind of put out that whole when you
giving it
validate
validity.
exactly,
Yeah.
you give it validity. When somebody goes, "Oh, look, they're using the word," the same people
Right.
use those racist words. That's why they're using
It's not
it.
a cuts. It's literally an S&M thing.
No,
It
It
is
comes
an
from-
I'm not saying those are racist words. All I'm saying is that.
But why are you saying is what I'm trying to say? I don't understand why
I'm
we're
just saying,
If we
you guys
mention
don't
it, it
care
must
where-
be a reason why we're mentioning it.
Like, do you care like where Italian words came from? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to find the equivalents. Like, what? Like, where did the hard R N word come from? Right? Where did that originate from? And then would you still use the same language, the other language that they use? I don't know. You know
Well,
No, I
what
think
I'm
there's
saying
a
is
limit
the
to
word
things.
So that's what
specific.
I'm
We have
saying.
to be word specific. If a word is racist, we shouldn't use the word racist.
Right.
But if it's just used, if something in the English language is used by someone who's a racist, doesn't mean if anybody else
Right.
uses it, there's a racist too.
Right.
And that's what they're trying
They're
to
trying
do.
to do
that.
They're
It's like-
trying to conflate the two to say, okay, look at this person right
Yep.
here. So now we don't have to.
I know
Now we
they're
don't have to argue on
conflating
his
it.
merits.
I know they're conflating it.
Yeah, they're doing it to
I'm
discredit
just
the
saying,
person.
So then, why not be smart with your strategy on trying to, and just like not use it?
Because now you're giving into the tactic
Yeah.
that they created.
Yeah. Now you're tone policing yourself.
Now you are tone
Because-
I feel like I can get a point across without using any.
But
of those
why?
words.
Why are
That's
they
your
setting the
personal
parameters?
choice. If I feel like calling Bernie a cuck, I can.
No, but I'm not saying that.
But yeah, but we're
you
allowing
keep going
these
to
people.
cuck. I'm talking about like other words though, like
What
normie
other
and,
words? Normie
norm-
isn't a bad word, dude. Everybody uses it.
No, I know, but that's where it originated from.
It didn't originate from there. They don't have ownership of the word normie.
Okay, where
we're
did it
not-
originate from?
Normie? Look it up in the dictionary. It's a normal
Where'd it
fucking
co- where-
word.
where- no,
it doesn't come from 4chan.
Oh no, fam.
It doesn't come from 4chan.
Fam, oh man.
No, it doesn't.
Fam.
Just because they've weaponized it,
yeah,
Johnny,
that's
doesn't mean that.
they're trying to control tone police, and they're also trying to control their narrative by using a
SWB
word
audio
to
capture,
smear
not
somebody else,
registered.
just so they don't have to
Fam,
talk
you know,
about the
normie's
principles.
not like an actual like.
I've been using that for like years, the word normie, to say the difference between somebody that's political and somebody that's not political. If they want to apply a different meaning, and I like that word from in the Bernie
It comes
movement,
from the
we've
word
been using
normal.
we've been using that word in the Bernie movement from
right,
people
well-
who weren't like burners. They're like they're normies because they don't understand politics, and it's like I've said it many times. It's like so hard to date a normie because they don't like know what's going on,
Okay,
and
so
it's
I'll
like
give you this one because here it says normie saw its more specific context in 1980s and early 1990s. So it has been used before. Of use word by people with disabilities to refer to those without them. Okay.
It
Yeah.
comes from the word normal.
Yeah.
Right?
But
It's easy to
what
see.
these people do is they weaponize shit.
No, so
and
the
now they ruin it for everybody else.
What kind of people you mean though? Like SJ?
The incels. Like they weaponize the right, like whatever they are. They go on these threads in 4chan, and I've seen it. This isn't like 4chan's been around forever now. And they weaponize these words, and so now people who have been using these words can't use them. Like, and the criticism always comes from like the shit libs, like, oh, you can't see that. It's like, no, dude, I'm not playing your game.
Yeah.
I'm so done caring what you think. These people are never going to accept people like us. They're never going to like us, and they're never going to accept people that are actually really here to go over all the superfluous bullshit and actually fight the establishment.
Yeah.
These people who like put on this cloak of virtuosity, right? They're like, oh, we're so perfect, but literally vote for fucking imperialist warmongers. Like, that's where I'm at right now with these people. I think they're just full of shit.
Well,
and
it's also a tactic too, as well, to push down any dissenting voice, right, that has a different opinion by labeling them a racist.
Yeah.
Right,
And you
that's
do
what
that
the
by
CIA
expanding,
all the time.
all the time. COINTELPRO,
SWV
a whole thing.
audio
You
capture
expand the
not
definition of what a
registered.
racist is. Then now they're using words that you can say, okay, don't listen to that person.
Right.
That person used the word normie.
Right.
That person's a 4chan racist. So
Right.
therefore,
Right,
we don't even have that
Absolutely,
discussion.
they weaponize it. But then, like, why would you give them that edge or whatever?
Because they're
why
not.
would you give in to
Yeah,
to
why
what they
would you let
want?
them set the parameters
Right, when
of
these words have
hijacking the
existed
English
for
language?
decades?
But I mean, you can get the same point across.
But
without using
that's
the
your
slang.
choice.
you're why are you capitulating to
But
what
I'm
they
not
want you to do?
capitulating. I'm
Yes,
just
you
saying.
are. When you say
I'm
I'm
just
going to
saying,
use a different
I'd
word,
rather be able to speak to a broader audience than not speak to an audience is going to be
They're
like,
never
oh,
going
that's
to.
going to
That
break
audience
They're not
is
going to
never
speak
going
to a
to.
broad
because of
audience.
how propagandized all the people are, right?
They're trying
because
to-
of how propagandized everybody is.
And
We're
that-
in
Normie
a
is not
bubble.
racist. They're trying to divide
Absolutely,
division
they
lines.
are. Absolutely,
Yeah.
they are.
And that's why you don't give in
But
to
that's
them.
why I'm saying it's a difference of strategy then, because what
Yeah.
I would do is I wouldn't use those words so I can talk to a more general population, whereas you guys don't give a fuck. So then,
No, because what we're doing is we're not giving in to the people who don't want to talk to people.
Right.
We're people who talk to everybody. They talk to nobody. They want to cause divisions and lines so that you don't talk to them. That's why they put that tactic out there and mention 4chan. Specifically to stop
I would
conversation.
not talk to anybody who uses that language. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
But
saying
that's what they're
when
doing
I
to
go
other
on, When I
people.
go on camera and stuff, I'm not going to use.
That's your
those
personal
words and
choice.
stuff.
Good,
I know
yeah.
it's my strategy, and I think it's a better strategy.
Well,
Okay.
I think you're wrong,
Yeah.
but
So-
that's that.
Somebody put
anyway.
down shit libs or normies.
Yeah, they are. They are. I'm not going to stop using words just because some fucking idiot decided it was racist. Eventually, they're going to say everything is racist.
Well, that's what they do. They move the lines. That's how they create division
Yep.
because they don't want you
and
to
if
work
you
shit
buy
words.
into that, then you're just perpetuating that.
Well,
mean-
it's funny because people that we know, that we've dined with, that we've have slept in our homes, have turned against us because I wouldn't say it because of those words, but because
not.
of things of like that we've been perceived as right, and then they use examples like, oh, they use this word. Or, you know what I'm
They've
saying?
never even used
Yeah,
that
we're
word.
talking
know.
about the same people who are promoting
But that's what
establishment
I'm saying.
Democrats.
Whereas before we were
Vaccine
they were
mandates.
with us.
So
Whereas
are we
before
the
they were with
problem
us.
or are they the
No,
problem?
but I'm saying they're falling for this shit. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not giving them ammo for their weapon, basically.
No, because
I understand what you're saying. I just disagree with it because
yeah.
I think you are giving them because the more you give in. We've shown that doesn't work. They're always going to
I'm
find
not-
something wrong with you.
Yeah.
No, because
but
we're not the problem.
I'm
they
not
are.
capitulating to the establishment. I can fucking
They
talk
do.
shit about the establishment without using whatever.
But
I don't know.
you're not using
just
the word
gonna
'cause they say don't
I'm
use
not,
it.
I'm not going to use any slang. Basically, I'll cuss, but like I'm not going to use any slang like that. you
Okay.
know, to get the point across.
Okay.
Okay. Trey Wright, first in the door, believe it or not. Hello, fam. Thank you so much. Can you believe it? Breaking news. Trey Wright is here first. Thank you for the Super 8 contribution. I'm giving you money because this unplanned first segment is pretty lit. Fee is on fire, as always. Trey, why don't you ever give me any love, all right? You know, you always give Fee love. Me and Johnny, what do we, chop liver here? We love you, Trey Wright. Thank you for coming on in first as well. No offense says, I love cucks with a smile. No offense. Cut it out. Don't get started over
That's
here.
right. Cuck the world.
Don't ask me for shit. There's a song that says, fuck the world, don't ask me for shit. That's Method Man and Biggie Smalls.
Thank you, fam.
It's a great song,
Thank
fam.
you. Appreciate it.
He even says at the end, Beth-Five is in the live,
That's
this
why I
one,
love
my
Sky
burrow is
Daddy's
thorough.
show name because she doesn't give a fuck.
Sabby Sabs has got a name like Favorite Flav. Like when you introduce you, Sabby Sabs. That's an Italian last name, by the way. I think.
Yeah.
We'll ask.
Yeah.
You want to get started on the show, fams? Talk about a little bit about something important over here.
Yes.
Infrastructure.
Right. So this is why I'm so fucking done with these people. So these progressives congratulate Bernie and Pelosi for the worthless infrastructure bill advancement. It's just the advancement. It's not the end. So this is the 3.5 trillion safety net package, and it's going to now. This guarantees a vote that the Senate Senate approved $550 billion infrastructure bill by September 27th. That's the deadline. And of course, they're also going to be voting on the wonderful John Lewis voting rights bill and the budget reconciliation bill. Still, that has to go through the committee in both the Senate and the House. So that's what's gone on. And for me, this is like the progressives are painting this like it's the biggest win. Bernie Sanders did this on his own. How amazing. Look at the progressives and how they're using their leverage. What the fuck? What did we get out of this? Nothing. Hold on.
Well, it's so funny, and I know you're going to go into it as well, too, Johnny. We're having this conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't use certain language because now I look online, and all the Republicans are using the term slush fund. And I'm like, oh, you fucking assholes. I was using this a couple weeks ago, and now you jerk-offs appealing in there and using that word because at the end of the day, we've had so many infrastructure bills, all this shit, and the money never gets to where it has to go. I'll let you go and we'll piggyback on that after.
No, yeah, I mean, it doesn't, right? And let me see. I just wanted to read a couple of this. The House voted 220
the NBC
to
News
212 on a key procedural motion to instruct committees to write the $3.5 trillion bill, okay? So they actually had a decent amount of support. And Nancy Pelosi committed to the September 27th deadline to placate to the centrist Democrats like what's her face that nobody likes.
You talking about the one from Arizona? Is that her name? Sanu or whatever?
Yeah, Kristen Sinema.
Sinema, that's it.
Yeah, that's her name.
Yeah.
And they said, never bet against Nancy Pelosi. Representative John Larson from Connecticut said, knowing the enormous amount of work that goes into something like this and then the very narrow margins that we have, it makes her job even more extraordinary. She also takes all the heat for being the leader. So there you go. Nancy Pelosi is, is getting so many accolades. And Biden has said that it's going to transform America, that it's a historic investment and it's going to cut taxes for working families and position the American economy for long-term economic growth. Do you see how broad these statements are?
My God.
There's literally no specifics into how this is actually going to help people because there's no extension of the unemployment benefits that are expiring on September 4th. There is no further talk about any rent cancellation or any sort of stimulus check that people are getting. There's none of that. None of that right now. So
yeah, there's talks about how to slow down crypto though, and how to try to change the whole language over there. I mean, there's a bunch of shit in here that doesn't even fucking get to where it's got to go. And I hate the fact that they always make these broad statements and shit. Because you know why? Because leftists and progressives, they listen to language rather than look at policy.
Yep.
And that is a huge, huge problem, fam.
That is why I have a problem because they are so hyper focused on how this word is going to make somebody feel that they don't look at the content of what's actually behind there. And that's what the CIA and the establishment have always weaponized against the left. And now progressives are literally, like Steve says, they were the liberals in training wheels, and now they're full on riding the bike now. That's it. There's no difference, really, in my opinion, between them and the liberals at this point.
What would you like?
Speaking of cucks, Bernie Sanders.
Would you like me to read this?
Please read it.
Congratulations to Speaker Pelosi and the House Democrats for passing the $3.5 trillion budget resolution. Now, let us move forward aggressively to transform this country by passing both reconciliation bill and the infrastructure bill. Working families are counting on us, fam. Not cucking on us, counting on us.
I mean, Bernie Sanders is congratulating Nancy Pelosi. This is where we're at right now for this shit. For literally nothing. Like nothing. What Working families are counting. They've been counting on you, Bernie. They've been counting on you for freaking forever, since 2016. I mean, what have you been done? I just want to look at these comments.
CJ.
Go fuck yourself, you sellout. You know this is another money laundering bill for large corporations and the wealthy. You know it's not going to fix any of the problems across thousands of communities being poisoned by their water, like Flint water crisis. You pathetic fucking coward. I mean, hey, I'm with the people here. The sentiment is that, like, who gives a shit what these liberals think? They haven't done anything for us, right? They haven't done absolutely anything for us. And I mean, all the comments, really, like, all the comments are just so, like, pretty much like, what the hell is this?
I'm like, yeah. I mean, people are starting to call it out, dude. The more I look at things right now, it's funny, fam. Today, while we were getting ready, Anthony Blinken was doing a little speech today, and it was press conference. There's so many more thumbs down than there are thumbs up. These people are getting ratioed. People are catching on. You know, that question we asked Cynthia McKinney, do you still have faith in the people? She's like, oh, that's a good question, because you see the divide nowadays and stuff.
Propaganda is strong.
Yes, but these moments when they go after people, and people are now no longer afraid to say, hey, you know something, Bernie? Go scratch. I'm going to call out your bullshit. It gives me hope.
Yeah, it does give me hope, I think. And that's precisely why you're seeing the attacks on any sort of dissent increase, and the attack and the surveillance state increase. There's not just their surveillance, but the declination of the freedoms that we have, free speech, the ability to say something controversial. Those are the things that are they're focused on, and that's why they're trying to divide us further, because they see that we're an angry population, an increasingly angry population, and so they're like, oh, we got to do something about that, because we can't let these people like realize that we're the problem. So let's turn Antifa and the Proud Boys and have them fight each other, because that's really beneficial to them. They're sitting there eating pretty and like having a great time watching everybody fight each other. And that's why it's so ridiculous to me what's happening in Portland, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's too, like, that's the things I want to go out there and do. Like, there are some people who are like, they try to build these phony bridges, not mentioning any names, but, I want to build real bridges. You know what I'm saying? I want to go out to some of these protests with all these, patriots and tell them, why do you keep calling them commies? Why do you keep on going against socialism? This is what they want. Let's talk about this thing. And telling the people on the left, why are you calling these people fascists? I want to build the real bridges and to talk about the real things
that
we
optimistic.
need to bring us together. I know it's very optimistic.
I think some of these people, though, as much as I agree with the ideology on the left of anti-fascism, they attacked my friend just because he was at the event here, who's a Bernie supporter. He was like, oh, I want to know what they're talking about, like anti-mandates, and they were like going after him. Yeah. Just the same way as these Proud Boys, they attack like anybody that has a leftist mentality as a commie, and like they say all this crap about communism that's not real. They're like, it's almost like they're rabid on emotion. There's no logic there on both ends. I'm not as optimistic as you. I think those people are lost. I think we can get some of the people that aren't as involved in those organizations to come on our side, that are more working class.
Well, I'm talking about people who go out for certain rallies, like this particular rally and stuff, that might not necessarily be a Proud Boy or a BLM or Antifa.
There's a difference between a Proud Boy and somebody that's like against anti-mask or anti-mandates.
Today, I think they had the sentence for the Proud Boy, what's his name, Tario and stuff, and he was even saying, I think, the fact is like, oh, they want Antifa and BLM to go out and the Proud Boys to go at each other.
Wasn't he like working with the FBI though?
I don't know what that was. That's what people were saying.
Yeah,
they were saying he was a Fed, but they just sentenced him to 5 months today for burning a Black Lives Matter flag. And
doesn't mean he wasn't a Fed though.
So I didn't follow the roots to that, because I really don't follow the Proud Boys that often. Like I said, when I listened to Garland Nixon and we talked to him, Garland's like, don't even focus on those groups. They're so small. They're renewed. They're just put out there to put the people against each other. There's a lot more of the people you can convince. And that's why I was like talking like the rally that Johnny went to this weekend while we had that panel. I would have loved to have been with Johnny on that one. You know what I'm saying? Those are rallies I don't want to miss, because I want to talk to those people. And I'm going to, this whole fear of socialism, like Fred Hampton said, if you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself. Why shouldn't we take all that money we spend on fucking war and use it for the people back at home? You're going to call that socialism? Like, that's bad? I don't get it. And I want to try to get an understanding of what they're afraid of.
Yeah,
So,
they're entirely
you know,
miseducated. And so, yeah, this is People for Bernie, by the way,
Favorite
who
site,
is
isn't it?
run by Winnie Wong, which is one of the establishment idiots that sunk Bernie's campaign. And big win for U.S. progressives. Historic loss for the U.S. Chamber and No Labels org. Like, this is not a win. They said any Democrat aligning with the U.S. Chamber at any level opposes expanding Medicare to hearing, vision, and dental. This is where they're at now. This is where they're at. They're at expanding Medicare to hearing, vision, and dental. This is the criticism that progressives gave when Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and even Hillary Clinton offered to lower the Medicare age and expand Medicare. This is where they're at right now. 5 years later, they've gone backwards instead of forward. Do you not see how, like, ridiculous that is? We're over here fucking, like, talking about the Antifa and Proud Boys and all this bullshit. The progressives have gone back. They've shifted to the right, actually. If you're looking at it from a left-right paradigm, they've also become more authoritarian, which is scary. And again, like, they're accepting losses. Like you said, incremental losses.
They're fighting for incremental losses.
Establishment politicians now just because they're not Republicans.
Yeah.
What do you think happens after Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi reach a deal? Do you think like they just, they don't talk to each other? Their kids go to the same schools. They run in the same circles. Cynthia McKinney talked about this.
Yep.
These people high five right when
Professional
the cameras go off. They're friends.
Arm in arm, hand in hand.
This is who these people are, and yet you're playing into this fucking theater. And it's so obvious to me. I just don't understand.
It's what you said about the incremental losses. It's like, Bernie, what will we get for voting for Gavin Newsom? Nothing. But it won't be as bad if the Republican gets in.
Right.
And that's something you got to consider. Could you imagine going up to a homeless person on the fucking streets of California where we have almost 200,000? Hey, man, I know it's bad, but you got to hang in there. We got to let the same people who fucking made sure that this number, the homeless number, rose crazily, even though they're Democrats, stay in there because it would be worse if it was a Republican. I mean, how do you fucking sell that? At what point do you say, hey, you know what? Like Cynthia said, no more. You don't get our vote. You get nothing.
No. If you haven't seen
The
Cynthia
power
McKinney,
of no.
is it only on Rokfin still?
It's on Rokfin. I'm going to cut it up and put it on. I have a new thumbnail. I'm going to put it up on YouTube, and I'm going to refer to her as Dr. McKinney
Yes.
from now on, because she's a doctor and she deserves that.
She is a doctor.
Yes.
So this is Pramila Jayapal, the fighter for Medicare for All, right? And I'm putting her tweet here because it's important to note. She said, first, the House must deliver once-in-a-generation, popular, and necessary investments in childcare, paid leave, climate action. Do you see how broad these statements are? Once again, healthcare, housing, education, and more to families. Then we will pass the infrastructure bill to invest in our roads, bridges, and waterways. So this is what's happening, guys. They have decided that they're going to not vote on the infrastructure bill, the final infrastructure bill, until they pass a reconciliation bill. That's what these progressives are doing. Mm-hmm. But look at what they're saying. They're talking about Medicare expansion. They're not talking about Medicare for all. This is the woman whose bill was in the House. That's the Medicare for all bill that progressives were pushing. Bernie's was in the Senate. These are the people that campaigned on Medicare for all and that took money from working class people who literally gave them money because they had they gave them all they had, and are now not fighting for that. They're fighting for incrementalism. And the Progressive Caucus, which is made up of over 100 progressives who literally don't use any sort of leverage to get anything done, is right on board with that. They said, we're pleased, in the next tweet, to see the House Democratic Caucus come to a consensus on the need to pass the budget resolution without further delay. And we remain united with leadership and the President of the United States in our mission to enact the entire Build Back Better agenda.
The BBB. B cubed.
So there it is, their little statement. The Congressional Progressive Caucus on enactment of budget resolution. And this is Pramila Jayapal, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, issued the following statement, which is what we read. And then the second paragraph where she says this, she says, our position remains unchanged. We will work to first pass the Build Back Better reconciliation bill so we can deliver these once-in-a-generation, popular, and urgently needed investments to poor and working families. What are you delivering? Did you cancel rent? Did you give Medicare for all? Are you giving a stimulus package? Are you giving some sort of, I don't know, some sort of actual help that will put money back in people's pockets? No, none of that is happening. And then pass the infrastructure bill to invest in our roads, bridges, blah, blah, blah. As our members made clear for 3 months, the two are integrally tied together, and we will only vote for the infrastructure bill after passing the reconciliation bill, blah, blah, blah. And every elected Democrat should do the same. Build Back Better agenda. Congress must now move urgently to send both pieces of this package to the president's desk for his signature so we can transform people's lives. What are you transforming?
Oh my God.
They don't specify what exactly are you transforming. They can't even commit to a $15 federal minimum wage, which is no longer, it's been so long that fight has gone on that it's no longer enough. $15, you can't survive on that.
It's not even theater anymore. It's bad theater, guys.
Yeah.
It's awful theater. Like the language, we're going to transform people's lives. Remember when we interviewed with Reverend Annie Chambers?
Mm-hmm.
She says, now people, we know better. This ain't going to change nothing over here. This is going to give them a little holiday, but this ain't going to do nothing to the poor people out there.
Yeah.
And yet they were talking, oh, this is going to transform people's lives. This is going to cut into child's poverty, they said. They had the nerve to fucking say that shit. Guess what? The homeless number keeps on getting bigger and bigger every year. Leave that one now. Sorry.
Okay, so I think we have AOC here.
Your fave, fam.
And she, again, I just want to read the top of her tweet. Our position remains unchanged. We'll only vote for the... It's like she copy-pasted this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's like lowering drug prices, fighting climate change, supporting childcare, and providing vision and dental care to seniors. Okay, so lowering drug prices right now in the middle of how much money Pfizer is making. We're going to talk about that. Fighting climate change. How? The Green New Deal is literally a corporate giveaway to all these powerful oligarchs. Literally does very little. It doesn't ban fracking. It doesn't do anything to actually push a new way forward at all. And they're not even talking about the Green New Deal here, which is like not even great. She's just talking about fighting climate change. Yeah. Do you see what they do here? And like this, dental care and vision to seniors. To seniors. Okay, so what about literally everybody else? What about no? It's like this is seniors already have Medicare. Okay, so we're expanding vision and dental. I'm not gonna complain. I mean, that's if they do that, that's a good thing if that happens for seniors. But like, we're in the middle of a supposed pandemic, right? And we can't get health care. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've said this ad nauseum. Like, I don't understand how people can praise this. I have a really like, I don't.
Because they know it's not policy. They just hear the words and then they root them on. That's it. You know, they listen to the words, the rhetoric. They don't look at the actions, the actual policy. You know, and that whole thing that you're talking about right now, and we're talking about over here, something that Cynthia McKinney called in an interview, astroturfing. Like they get the same email, they pass on the same message. Remember, we always talked about, I'd like to get on that email chain that tells everybody what to do and how they do it. They listen. They got their ducks in the order. They know how to work very well together. How to dupe the people. They're organized when it comes to this shit. Their messaging is always on cue. You know. Yeah,
and another issue that Pasta, and I know you have this issue too, is the HROne. There's so many issues with HROne, including the making it nearly impossible for a third party to compete in this process, right? In the whole election process, we already don't have a fair shake at the system. If you're a third party, it makes it 10,000 times worse. It gives the establishment candidates more money to fight these independents or third party candidates, and they're framing HROne as like a revolutionary election type of bill that's going to guarantee more voting rights for people. Well, it's not. Voter registration, I think that's great, but here we go. Vote by mail and early voting in every state. It also ends partisan gerrymandering and much more. Okay, we could end gerrymandering, but vote by mail without any sort of chain of custody, that is just going to make things worse. And that's exactly what's in HROne. We've talked about it before. You can search in our videos, HROne. I think Robbie Yeager also did a breakdown on the money aspect of HROne, which I think was really
awful.
well done.
Yeah, it's an awful bill.
It's awful.
So, and it also talks about, when it comes to it, like the everybody on the voter registration will get a mail-in ballot. They're going to shotgun those out again. That's very, very dangerous. And it also takes away the state's rights. That's the argument a lot of people say. It's like HR1 really is unconstitutional, that the state has the right to decide the hours and when they can vote early and whatnot. So there's a lot of talk.
It centralizes
the dark money,
power on the federal level when it comes to voting.
Exactly.
And the problem I have with that is that at the federal level, it's a mess. I mean, it's not like the states honestly like do that much better of a job, but that's the only fighting chance you have at actual reform right now, because the federal government isn't doing it. So it's like it's just such bullshit. They're really making it like this whole win of accessibility, but without any sort of security, which we've talked about on the show so many times, is a loss, because that of course makes everything ripe for fraud. And I just wanted to post this tweet here from AOC from 2019 on what she talked about Afghanistan. She said here, I think our decision to enter unlimited engagement in Afghanistan, particularly through the AUMF and Congress, abdication of power, decision-making with passage of the AUMF was a mistake. Other options targeting the network itself, limited engagement, non-intervention. And she said, this liberal said, what does non-intervention mean? Do you mean us doing nothing? Do you think that's the correct course of action after a massive terrorist attack on our soil? God. And AOC said, it means not invading an entire nation without end. Doesn't mean do nothing. It means perhaps we should have leaned on more on the larger role of other agencies, intelligence, State Department, diplomatic teams, etc., before Congress decided to invade a nation without a concrete end plan. Interesting, she's advocating for more agency intelligence involvement, which these things are the actual problem that literally led to the creation of these radical, jihadists. Like, that's literally what led to the creation. She does not understand foreign policy whatsoever. I'm not saying that the way that it's that simple, but really it is that simple. Like, we shouldn't have fucking involved ourselves, period.
Yeah. And with the whole nation building and everything like that. But it's also to another tactic, fam, that we have to kind of point out. She is going to that 3-letter agency tactic and stuff like that, which is just making a bad solution even worse. You know what I'm saying? So the fact is that she's trying to present, this is the other solution. We don't send our troops in. We let the special forces deal with it. So therefore it manufactures consent, because it seems more logical to let special forces and the CIA deal with it rather than our actual everyday troops that are just enlisted men in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. It really is a dirty, dirty tactic.
Yeah, and I think
it is like privatizing a war too as well. You
yeah.
know?
And we already went over what Jayapal did. I guess that was out of order, so apologies to Jonny for that. And so what's in the bill? It's 2,700 something pages. None of these people read everything. I'm telling you, it's impossible, right?
Every bill they do this shit. The CARES Act.
Yeah, that's why they do it, right?
It's like, and a lot of congressmen and women and senators, like, when they get a hold of these bills, some of them will come forward like, we just got this yesterday and we're voting on it today. We haven't even got time to go peel through this son of a bitch, and you're making us vote on this, and they do that on purpose. Yeah. They literally come wheeling them in on a dolly and poof, put the thing on the desk.
Yeah, so we're going to start reading and we'll be done in I don't know,
Thursday?
3 days. Yeah. Okay, I'm just kidding. We're not. But I mean, this is insane. But this is mostly infrastructure, right? This is why it's called the infrastructure bill. Can you, you've gone out. We have really bad infrastructure. Look at our infrastructure compared to China.
Why are you stealing my mind? I was waiting for my section to talk about it.
Ahead.
Well, once again, we've had many of these bills. I put an article that came in there that went over the bills that Trump tried to sign. He didn't get it signed. Want to go to
the article? We can.
We could do that.
Guys, read the bill. Take a week.
Take a vacation and read. It's right there.
But I just real quick before we get to that, I wanted to talk about this, right? Buried in the 2,700 page infrastructure bill is this thing where we're going to start charging people. They're going to start charging people for the mileage.
Yeah.
Like putting a cap on the mileage you drive.
Toll roads and all this other bullshit they're putting in there.
To test the design, acceptance, implementation, and financial sustainability of a national motor vehicle per mile user fee. What? Are you fucking kidding me? B, to address the need for additional revenue for surface transportation infrastructure and a national motor vehicle per mile user fee. And C, to provide recommendations relating to the adoption and implementation of a national motor vehicle per mile user fee. So they're testing this, which means it's eventually going to be. Guys, that's ridiculous. So now you want to charge me to...
Only the elite can drive on the certain toll roads, fam.
I mean...
You with the rest of the plebs get on the 405 with the potholes and the cracks and the wiggliness when you drive because it's awful. That's something that Johnny says all the time. He goes, what the fuck is wrong with our roads?
We pay
everywhere we go. It's
so
terrible.
Much in taxes already in the state of California in particular for our roads. And they're discussing, you know where the roads are nice here in California? In the nice parts of Pasadena, in Beverly Hills, in West Hollywood, Santa Monica. The roads are beautiful in those areas.
Yeah.
The roads are not beautiful in the working class areas. In fact, that you could literally crash because there's a giant pothole that you can't avoid. We pay so much in taxes. Our money doesn't go there. This is why, I used to be about taxation, and be well, I don't mind paying taxes if it's going to benefit the society.
It never does.
It never does. It's not that I'm against paying taxes if it would benefit society. I don't want taxation without representation, because at this point taxation is theft, and you can call it a libertarian point of view, but it's not, because we're not seeing the benefit of where all this is going. And on top of that, now they want you to pay more so that money doesn't go where it's supposed to. Because, again, just speaking from California, they were allotted money to deal with a housing and homeless crisis. That money never got to those areas.
It never does.
It never
does.
And
and we were watching something yesterday, and it was a gentleman who lived in China for many years was talking about, well, just look at China's infrastructure. You know, the money actually gets out to the people and the roads and whatnot. You look at China, and it's just futuristic city after futuristic city and everything is beautiful and it's whatnot, and they got high-speed rail. He even mentioned that Azerbaijan has high-speed rail, but in Detroit, we keep getting trains that go off the tracks, whatnot. How often do we hear, once again, in this part of the town or this part of the country, a train went off the track? We're using old shit because every time they allot money for it, it never gets there.
Right.
A lot of these companies take the money and then declare bankruptcy and keep the money they took.
It's exactly
right.
What happens.
It gets wasted all on the boards. Go ahead, Johnny.
It says one of the tools for that pilot program is to use third-party onboard diagnostic devices to track.
So that's
to track the meals, the vehicle miles traveled.
Can you imagine that talking to you, Johnny? Mr. Majorca, you've drive the allotted miles per day.
No.
Please pull over and take a bus home.
Are you talking about the breathalyzer?
No.
Is that what it?
Perhaps. No. This is part of the pilot program for the any of the following vehicle miles traveled collection tools. So they want to put a diagnostic device, or you use your smartphone, or a telemetric data, or
the Libertarians gonna have a field
data
day
obtained by current car insurance companies.
Yeah, they have the little plug-in things, right? Right now, though, they tell you the smart thing, plug it in, and you pull it out, and they let you...
But this is the government completely getting all up in your fucking business here.
Shit.
Onboard diagnostic devicies, so just
Can't
wanted to
be
point
high.
that out. That should creep me out.
Can't be high.
Can't be high, you gotta blow. Ah!
You know, the worst part is that people, a lot of people in America, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people in America take medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get behind the wheel, and that's not there's no way to measure that. I wonder if they're gonna start did you take your Oxycontin today? Did you take your antidepressive medication? Then you can't drive, and this is so draconian.
Yes, because it's not going to let you drive. It's going to report, say you cannot drive today. You've took too much Oxycontin.
Or you.
And then it will be something that will report to your doctor, your patient has taken too much Oxycontin. So now your doctor will know too as well. That's when you started these things. That's where they ended up. Then you need your medication.
Yes.
Right? Or because guys, I'm a huge fan of apocalyptic literature, post-apocalyptic literature. Brave New World. Everybody had to take Soma. You had to take your Soma. If you didn't take Soma, you started feeling too much and behaving out of character, which means you started having a fucking mind of your own. And if you didn't take so, you can't have that. So now you have to comply. This is like, we're not making this up here. We're not trying to fearmonger. This is what's happening. Do you have anything else you want to read from there?
It's because it's
yeah.
I'm just reading their whole proposition for this pilot program, right? So
it's scary.
They're gonna want the fact that there should not be any pilot program.
No.
To determine whether or not they should have a mile per whatever vehicle mile per fee. Fucking shit. I'm just lost right now. Like there's loss of words that this is even happening. This is literally in the bill.
Yeah. You can get
Why
to the
isn't any of the
part
progressives fighting for this?
Because the progressives don't care. They think that they are
fighting against it.
Yeah, they didn't read it. They didn't know about
a lot.
This
don't
either.
read it,
the
and when they
Libertarians
do,
are the ones that read it.
But you know how they are. They're so virtuous. Oh, we need to put these implications in there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to help cut down on global warming. We can't let everybody just drive all the time where they want to drive.
Right. That's what they're using. Do you see that? So it's you, the pleb, who has to get to work. And a lot of people I know who are working class have to drive an hour or two to get to work.
Yes.
Okay. And they don't have the privilege of living next to where they work because let me put it, for example, to you guys right now. Example. Though in a lot of workplaces are in the west side of LA. Santa Monica, let's say you're a server. You make the most money on the west side oftentimes. Let's say you work in Venice, right? Let's say you live in like east of Pasadena, which is cheaper to live there because it's further away from the ocean. Oh, you have to drive an hour and change to get to work. People are that desperate. They're doing that. In Florida too, people that work in Disney, they live farther away. It's the same thing. And so they can't afford to live closer. So now you're going to penalize these people that can't afford to live closer who need to drive more. So the poor always end up having to pay more. Whereas a rich person's like, oh, I can just get an apartment and not pay anything. Do you see? They're criminalizing poverty from the city council level here with the ordinance all the way to the federal and national level. They're criminalizing poverty. The poor are criminals now. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Fam, we need a two-tier society. It must be done. We have global warming issues. We have overpopulation issues.
It's not like the people that have all these electronic appliances and all these fancy cars and literally their private fucking jets are not the problem. It's the fucking plebs that are the problem.
Because
that
there
drive
are
a mile
so many
over,
more plebs than there are of us.
Which is why we should
elites.
eat the rich.
Yes. Talking about that French Revolution, and here's the thing where I just want to finish up on this topic right now before we get our guest on, is that the infrastructure spending bills have a history of waste and embarrassment. And this is from the Americans for Prosperity. It is a libertarian sort of mindset, but this is where, when I've always paid attention to libertarians, it was areas like this, like, look at the money we're wasting. Look at the money we're wasting. And a lot of progressives would always try to kind of twist that narrative and saying, oh, you don't want to have programs for poor people and stuff like that's bullshit. I do want programs for poor people, but we don't want pork that's just going to go to a bunch of contractors and never end up on our streets. Our streets are terrible, like we talked about, and when China, you look at it, it's like a futuristic town.
Stop being so anti-China, Paso.
Because it's ridiculous, because we heard something, and I don't know, I can't confirm this, but we were listening to somebody the other day. He goes, it's just a different kind of society. Their actual money and spending goes to projects in the streets. Look at the country. Look how it's progressed. And they even talked, like I said, Azerbaijan. I want to see if Azerbaijan has a high-speed railway. We have no high-speed railway anywhere in this country. We're using the same fucking thing.
You go to Europe, you can go to any place in Europe and literally use a train to get around. In fact, you can go from the United Kingdom, which there's islands, and use the channel from Paris to France to get around through the ocean. The channel, like it's an underwater fucking train. Like, I mean, you can navigate places in the poorest parts of Europe, right? They have that. In freaking Latin America, they have trains.
Yeah.
Like better trains than we do. Literally in the global south.
Yeah.
Argentina, like they like, are you fucking kidding me? We can't get anything. And in Florida, what do? They put the Sunrail, which it's like just so useless. It barely gets you anywhere.
And where's all this money going to end up? It's going to end up in Wall Street. Wall Street's going to get their hands of it, grab hold of it. All these big contracts. It's going to go to individuals rather than the people, and that's what's going to happen. So I'm just going to read these bullet points really quick of this one part of the article in the very beginning. It says this isn't the first time in recent history spending bills disguised as infrastructure bills have been criticized in this way. In 1998, President Clinton and Congress worked together on a $217 billion transportation bill. Now that's 23 years ago. So $217 billion, not no chopped liver for 23 years ago. 1998.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who could forget that George W. Bush 2005 bill included funding for an infamous bridge to nowhere? And I'll never forget this. And I started to understand. Remember this shit? It was like we were in Congress and they're arguing. And one senator in freaking Alaska wanted to build this bridge to nowhere, and they actually put the money towards it. A bridge that went nowhere.
We live in a fucking cartoon.
President Obama's 2090 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act had an $831 billion price tag, fam. You think just a short time ago when Obama had all this money out there, all right, for his transportation bill and everything else, and his Reinvestment Act, that we'd have better fucking roads. Maybe one high-speed railway somewhere around the country. No. The Trump administration proposed and endorsed several costly infrastructure plans between 2015 and 2020. They wouldn't let that schmuck fucking pass it. But yet he was trying to put it out there. And here we go. President Biden's recent proposal gives you deja vu. You're not alone. His promises sound familiar to us. Fam, we're going to reimagine the whole way we look at transportation around this country. We're going to build back better. It's disgusting. It's ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we have one problem that we need to take care of before we take care of anything else. It's corruption at the top. It needs to be removed. Because they might promise you all these things in these bills, but they've been promising it for years. And look at our infrastructure. And I don't understand how Bernie can't call this out. Remember him in 2016? I don't even go over a bridge anymore. Larry David did it. I go on the water and I cross it that way because I'm so afraid the bridge is going to crumble. I mean, our infrastructure is awful across the board. It's like technology hasn't even hit us unless it's for our
We're
phone
a fourth world
things.
country, right? We're not a first world country. We're
disgusting.
A fourth world country because we have crumbling infrastructure. Bernie used to say it all the time. Oh, crumbling infrastructure. He would talk about it all the fucking time. How dare he let this go as if it's a celebratory win? He would constantly say that. I remember all the time. I was like, he's addressing our crumbling infrastructure. Thank you. No, he's literally gone back on everything he said. This isn't a desire to hate on Bernie. Anybody who knows me knows I was a huge Bernie supporter. This is like a slap on the face and another slap and then a stab in the back. I mean, this is gross. Not just Medicare for all, but it's infrastructure, minimum wage, all of this shit that he talked about, housing as a human right, all these things are out the window. They're not even talking about it anymore. They're talking about incremental policies. How are you going to vote your way out of what we just saw in that bill, out of what Jonny pointed out? How are you going to vote your way out of them criminalizing poverty at every fucking level? And how are you going to vote your way out of this, out of them pretending everything's fine? Everything's good. Take the wins where you can get them, progressives. Here are the scraps. You're lucky you got that. That's what they're doing.
Yep. Wow. I mean, there's nothing much more to say, fam, because it's, Blackstone is going around and buying everything up.
Dude.
We're going to have no generational wealth for us. Even the fucking Generation X's like me, the old geezers like me, are not going to own property and be able to sell it off and die comfortably. You know what I'm saying? You guys are going to have to take care of me now, fam, because the government's not, they're restricting me from having any type of wealth. So you guys are going to have to take care of me when I'm in the old nursing home. Will you come visit me? Because I'm going to have no love out there.
You're so rude,
Please.
Jonny.
Help me out. Guys,
well,
Jonny.
this is what Max Kaiser was talking about what we saw yesterday at Pasta about how, China's booming.
Yeah.
And becoming the next superpower.
Yeah.
And they took a hold of the fucking, it looks like Iran signed that deal with China.
Yes, they did.
Or they're about to.
No, they signed. So
Jonny, can you send that to Sabby? She's actually running a little bit late, so if you wanted to go over anything else in that bill, that would be great.
Yeah, I can take a look, but what I was talking about is that So Iran signed a deal with China to help build their infrastructure, to help build them back actually better, right? So one of the things that he was saying is that geopolitical wise, the old saying was look to the west, and then now it's like look to the east, young man, right? Yeah. That's what they're saying now. So I don't know. And then the fall of the Roman Empire, what happened at the fall? They turned on their own citizens.
Yep. That's what happened.
And we're talking now this is about the Belt Initiative, or the Belt and Road Initiative, what China's trying to do, and it's gonna take billions of people to take them out of poverty and stuff. But now it's one island they got, right, Johnny? Now with Iran, they got water rights, whatnot. Afghanistan's getting under control. Afghanistan, the Taliban leadership has already gone to Moscow, already gone to Shanghai. They've already been talking to get everything in place. So now it's in a situation where China, right, is going to be the major superpower. But one of the things that Mr. Collins talked about when we saw on the show yesterday is the fact is that they don't have a system that we have over here. In other words, they pulled a lot of people out of poverty. A lot of the money that they have goes to the infrastructure and the actual people there and stuff, which would probably deter them from overthrowing that government that they have. And he also talked about it's the way the people pulled China out of all their issues, whatnot and stuff, right? So with that being said, what do we have over here? We have an infrastructure bill that's going to be taken away by a bunch of fugazi contractors, Wall Street, where the Bank of China, the CEO makes around $200,000 a year, but JP Morgan Chase, you got Jamie Dimon making billions every year, just taking all this money. This inequality comes from somewhere. It comes from theft. Right? And that's the problem we have. So anytime they throw any of these bills at you, you got to know it's full of shit because it's never going to hit its target. Because the corruption within our government is the main problem. We have to remove the corruption first so that if we did have an actual solid bill, fam, to rebuild this country, it would get done. And it hasn't been getting done for 30 years. Like I said, we have no high-speed rail.
There's no way that you're going to tell me that the squad and the 100 progressives of the Progressive Caucus can't make a move here and say, you know what? They're making a move for a reconciliation bill that literally does nothing. Like, so that's where they're look, this is what we're holding out for, which is nothing. And so they're doing that to kind of symbolically say, oh, look, see, we're doing something. But they're not, because that doesn't do anything for you and I. It's not any tangible gains that we're getting. And you can talk about China all you want. You can call it authoritarian. It is a superpower. China is a superpower. And they're not perfect. No country is. But at the same time, the one thing that is real is that China has people that have the middle class of China, in capitalist terms, or the working class of China in more communist terms has acquired wealth. Why? How do I know this? Because a lot of Chinese investors are coming here and buying up a lot of businesses, a lot of property. The kids who are coming from China are coming here and getting educated in America, and they have a lot of money. My friend is a teacher. She teaches English as a second language. All of her students are from China. They all have some sort of wealth acquired. This is like nothing like this. That's their population. Like, it's not like it's rare. It's like the vast majority of these people are coming here and spending money. When's the last time Americans went anywhere and weren't losing? If you go to Europe, like the pound and the euro are worth significantly more than the dollar. The only place where we can go is the global south and actually have more money. But that's all changing because America is Rome before its collapse. And we've always been compared to Rome. And I think it's more and more poignant as to how accurate that is, especially with the corrupt government, because that's how empires fall. When you don't take care of the people, then shit starts to hit the fan.
Yeah. I'm going to read some Super Rays really quick. Kamshwari Kate, Johnny, you're going to like this one. It says, I never used the word normie in my generation. We used the word vanilla. Yeah, that's because...
That's also from S&M.
That's...
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, no, I thought vanilla was from vanilla.
Vanilla sex versus like...
Yeah. It's supposed to be blah.
Not that I'm an expert. I'm just saying, guys.
Fam, you're knowing too much about this shit. You're making me nervous over here. Vanilla is a term that means blah. It's, so vanilla. You know what I'm saying?
Johnny needs
so
to
on
read
the
50 Shades of
surface.
Grey.
There's no chocolate chips. There's no caramel in there. Nothing to make it exciting and nuanced. It's just vanilla.
It's the Twilight Renaissance, fam. Did you
It's
know
from
that?
Minecraft. So
It's you guys too much. Roar Media.
It's true, though. That's
Okay, let's go on to the next one, fam, because now we're talking about vanilla. We got to talk about chopped liver. It says, Roar Media pasta, the chopped liver of the Convo Couch. That has a ring to it. Thanks a lot, Oz.
Who likes liver, Oz? Nobody
I'm
likes
a vegan.
liver.
Nobody likes liver. HROne, thank you for the Super 8 contribution, and thank you so much, Roar Media. By the way, to Hell and Back, coming back this Thursday. We're going to talk about the opioid fields, fam.
Doesn't
we'll talk about the opioid
Hunter
fields.
debut her show today?
I think was it last night or tonight?
Today.
It is today. Hunter
It's
Carranza.
like 7 or something like
Let's
that.
check it out. Hunter's going on. Let's do this. AREM says, I agree with Fiorella and Pasta about not letting others control the framing and language that determines what lefties say. Strategies considered or chosen, etc., etc., etc. Next thing is they'll be telling us who has integrity and who the experts are, etc. I also agree with Johnny on the concerns for unwanted or unnecessary consequences about things, words, that is, that distract from or dilute the issue or political success, etc. I mean, I think that was the best explanation there and stuff like that. There's also something we were talking about, that white dude who was trying to blow himself up in front of the Capitol building too as well. And I don't think we got to the point where Johnny was able to make a point there and stuff like that, is that, yes, that person, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong and stuff, and this could be my opinion, that person, even though I think the bigger picture is he's part of the same system which divides us, which is making everybody suffer the death trap of America, the elites versus everybody else, but these people also are not the leaders. These are people who have to be taught. And they have to learn things and see the bigger picture. So we don't want to also cast these people off as leaders. I'm not saying that we did, but when we kind of sometimes point out somebody, it can be taken as like, well, that person also has their own garbage they have to deal with too, their own ways they have to deal with. Yeah. And they're absolutely right. They're not the leaders, but these are people we still need to talk to and open up to. I don't think we should just cast them out as, oh, he's a racist asshole. There's nothing, he can't be conformed. He's just a jerk off. Don't ever talk to him.
Yeah, somebody can talk to him. I mean, the Fairhampton leftists are, doing mutual aid and stuff. I think that's more important, and then that's how you really try and build community. To your point about like talking about like to like Proud Boys and stuff. I mean, if you're there, try and talk to people, but I'm not going out of my way to be like,
I know.
But
we're gonna run into them, right?
Because there's such a small minority, and there's a lot of eyes on them, whereas there's a bigger populace in the United States that aren't even involved in politics that we can get through.
Absolutely.
Much easier than somebody who's already got these hard fucking
and that goes
propagandized. They're propagandized. Everybody's propagandized.
But that goes for like the Antifa people too. Sometimes like you can't get through them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, for me, it's like I'd rather leave those groups aside and focus on everyday people who aren't necessarily political, right? And who have the same concerns we do. Johnny, when we went to that bar, that person wasn't, necessarily political, that bartender, but they were like having an opinion on the situation.
No, that bartender was completely
class.
Working class, probably not in politics at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Jordan Peterson talked about this too before as well. When he was criticized about talking to Proud Boys, a lot of Proud Boys would show up as thing. He would say, well, what am I supposed to do? Not talk to these people?
No,
I talked to a friend of mine. If they cross your paths and whatnot, and we'd cover a lot of things that could cross our path. And says, somebody told me this, and this is a person who lives in the Middle East from this area. He goes, the worst thing you can do is not talk to a racist or cast them out, because then racists will only talk to other racists, and they'll get worse.
Yeah, if they come across my path, then
absolutely.
And by the way,
no one here is advocating to go. I mean,
we're not here to like, let's unite with the
exactly. So.
Yeah, with just talking to someone doesn't mean you're going to change your ideology like at all. Like, like you're not going to change who you are as a person. Like, I mean, I guess that can happen to people who are easily brainwashed. And it does, but like for the vast majority of time, what we're talking about is like if somebody, comes at you and says something and you have the opportunity to educate it and you feel comfortable, because Misty talks about this all the time on her show. She's like, I'm a white woman. I have no problem talking to a bunch of racists, but I don't expect other people who
Yeah.
have different, like if you're black or if you're Latino and you've experienced racism, I don't expect them to do it. But she's like, I believe it's my duty if I'm able to do that, to do it. And I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And
Her
I'm
cross is her
comfortable
path.
with it. And Niko's comfortable with it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But it's like, but we get trashed for even being like, oh, like, let's talk, Glory Jones does it all the time. Talks to these, Trumpers about Assange. And they're like, oh yeah, Assange. And then she's like, yeah, but Trump doesn't,
Exactly.
doesn't. And so that's what I mean. It's like, there's people that are going to do it, but you shouldn't expect everybody to do it, because not everybody is going to.
Well, there's a lot of people, we talked about the common folk, really, that aren't Proud Boys or Antifa or BLM or Boogaloo Boys or any of that stuff, that do have ideologies that I disagree with too. And
Yeah.
I'll also talk to them. I always talk about the Thanksgiving Day table, because it's like sometimes it's only conversation you might have once a year, where people will talk about that uncle or that aunt who have those beliefs, whatnot, are completely different than yours, that are rooted in racism, that they might not realize it, and they think that they're like, oh, I'm just trying to give more benefits to our veterans over immigrants. Well, that's a false dichotomy. Let's talk about that. You're the party of individual responsibility. Why aren't we being responsible for our foreign policy? You know what I'm saying? And I love to have those conversations, because we will, believe it or not, along the course of your travels, we will run into people who think differently than us. When I was back in Florida, I went to a comedy show, and I was at a table with a dude who was from Palestine, and we were on the same kind of fucking mental wave over there. We were able to talk about, and two guys who necessarily didn't agree with what we were talking about, and we sat and talked for 2 hours, and the conversations were like, we learned something, from each other, and they, that's important, you know what I'm saying? But to make sure that we have the open dialogue, we don't have to seek it out, but to have the open dialogue and not just be the opposite way and say that person's canceled. That's what I'm trying to say, is we shouldn't be cancel culturing like a motherfucker.
Well, that's like an online thing.
Yeah.
And a small minority of people doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the liberals and neoliberals.
And the progressives.
Progressives.
Oh, DC left a $2 Super Ray with 68 people in the room. Taxation is rent. Rentals, theft. Taxations is theft.
Yeah, I mean, if taxation goes, because that used to be a libertarian saying, I don't think it is anymore, because our money isn't going to where it should. It's like the whole socialist mentality is, okay, we're going to invest more resources in community. And instead of, so everybody can benefit, Social Security, that's a socialist concept. Your library card, public education.
Well, we
public
build these roads.
Those are all socialist concepts, whether people like to label them that or not. That's the truth. And so, what's happening is now we're giving our money and we're not seeing the benefit of it. That's the problem. And that, I think if people saw the benefits of what they're giving, they would be more likely to not have a problem, but that's not what's happening anymore.
And DC, by the way, he says taxation is rent, rent is theft, taxation is theft.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. So the next person we have to have on the show, we have to introduce, kind of like when you introduce Flavor Flav. It's a new voice out there from the Fred Hampton leftist fam. You got to do it instead of like Flavor Flav. You got to go. Today we have Sabby Sabs. What's up,
Oh my
Sabs?
God, Sabby.
Sabby Sabs.
Hey guys, so sorry I'm late. Gosh, story of my
Hold on
life.
1 second.
1 second.
Sorry.
Speaker. Guys, get on into the YouTube if you're not on. Share, subscribe, and also check out the Rokfin, because after Sabby, we're going to go into COVID stuff.
Okay.
So,
Rokfin only eventually, but we
Yeah.
got this one here up on the YouTubes.
yep.
How you doing, Sabby Sabs?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're great. Happy to have you here for some discussions, because we kind of wanted to talk to you, about your opinion on everything that's been happening. You are part of FHL, and we love Fred Hampton here. And there's so much going on, and we kind of wanted to get your perspective on a lot of this that's going on, because it's crazy. We're living in a very, very insane time.
Absolutely.
So Sabby, first of all, why did you decide to start a podcast? And what actually caused you to involve yourself in politics, or even more specifically, the movement?
Yeah, so I actually got involved in journalism in undergrad many years ago. And I learned very quickly. I was doing an internship with a local news station, and I realized that they weren't really going to let me tell my story the way I wanted to. They would edit out clips that I felt should have been kept in these news stories. And it just wasn't the story that I was trying to tell. So I became disappointed with journalism, mainstream media. And also in undergrad, I was a part of College Democrats. So I used to be a Democrat. And so that's how I got into politics. Then Obama came around. I was really excited for Obama, and he was probably my first disappointment from a politician, like really hurtful disappointment, because I had a lot of hope for him. And then after Obama, I just found myself politically feeling kind of lost. I didn't really know where I fit. I didn't feel like I was really a Democrat. I knew I wasn't a Republican. So I just kind of called myself an independent, but then I was like, but what does that mean? Like, well, where do I fit? So I just felt like I didn't have a political home. Started watching independent media on YouTube. And then I realized that, hey, there's other people like me out there that they're kind of feeling the same way, and they don't really fit into the mold of the Democratic Party anymore. So for me, I felt like I wanted to start a podcast because one of the things I did notice, and those of us at FHL, we've talked about this multiple times, is that we didn't feel like there were enough Black voices like in this space. Niko was the first person I found. And because I found Niko, I found, Convo Couch, and that helped me find other people as well. But I did notice that there weren't many Black people, almost no Black women until like Bree came along. And I felt like when it came to Black political issues, sometimes I felt like they either weren't being addressed or they weren't discussed in the right way. So the big one for me was reparations and defunding the police. And I just felt like people needed to hear from Black people who were also leftists.
Yeah. And I think too, as well, some of the people that the mainstream media has tokenized and put out there is not really a great example of what everyday people are out there and what we see. And that's why I think it's so great about Fred Hampton Leftists right now. Is like we're getting some real conversations instead of the Joyanne Reed kind of point of view or whatnot. But let's talk about the stuff that's been really stirring up everybody all over the internet when it comes to the Fred Hampton Leftists. And that's the talk, and this is something that Fam talked about a long time ago. I'm proud that my partner was one of the first to really talk about direct action over electoral politics. Example, progressives are now hailing this infrastructure bill when the working class still has no health care, no rent forgiveness. They're not going to extend unemployment, and we're going to be left out in the cold. You guys have made a big push about as far as like direct action over electoral politics. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. And also, too, with your ideology, does that mean we completely give up on electoral politics, or do we have to find a nice balance between the both?
Yeah, I know for me, with direct action, one of the things that we really preach to people is mutual aid, trying to help out your communities as much as you can. I know a lot of people have come to me and they said, well, in order to get these things that you want, like a $15 minimum wage, in order to cancel student loan debt, then you have to do it through electoral politics. That's actually not true. There is a general strike that's going to be happening October 15th. I'm not sure we have enough mutual aid for that just yet, but general strikes is one of the ways that we can get some of these things that we're demanding. Like we can demand, I think the minimum wage should be higher. We can demand a $25 minimum wage through a general strike. We can have a debt strike to cancel student loan debt. Some of these things we can accomplish with the people. And I always refer back to the civil rights movement. It wasn't like one day, Congress just woke up and said, oh, you know what? We're going to integrate schools and we're going to let Black people have the same rights as white people. No, I mean, people protested and fought for that for years. I mean, look how long it took. Look how many times Martin Luther King was beaten up. Look how many times he was put into jail. Women's rights movement, same thing. So those movements happen through the people. And this was something that Bernie actually talked about during his campaign. He was like, the movements happen with the people. Now he doesn't talk about that much anymore, but I think that that's really important. We're more powerful than we realize, even though we're not in a position of electoralism. If we all come together, like working class people, and we rise up, we can get some of these things that we're really fighting for. Yeah. In reference to electoral politics, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of faith in electoral politics. I always tell people on my show, I think if you're going to do electoral politics, you should do so locally. It's running for positions like city council. It's running for mayor. And I know those aren't like big, positions. It's not Congress, it's not Senate. But guys, the city council controls the budget. Like that is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people go into those positions and they've made tremendous changes. But I just think that the idea that you're going to go into Congress and you're going to go into Senate and you're going to make these drastic changes, I don't think that's going to work because the majority of people already in the House and the Senate are already against you, their establishment. So for that to work, you would have to have progressives would have to be the majority in the House and in the Senate. And even then, I still don't know if it will work because, again, like DC is very corporate. So I always tell people that the government doesn't run the country, corporations do. So you really have to fight back at the corporation. And that's where general strikes come in.
Yeah. I think I like to, we have a lot of insiders acting like outsiders and really duping the people, and that's why nothing ever really gets done with these so-called progressives. But just to finish up that question, so how do you kind of talk to somebody, or what's your opinion to somebody who says, well, I believe in both the inside-outside game? Do you still put an emphasis on, okay, that inside-outside game is important, but you still must participate in direct action?
Yeah, I understand, some people are, and that's fine, for them to like disagree, but I would just tell them, just look at history, look at what has happened. We've tried this already. We put in Justice Dems, which by the way, now I'm seeing that they have dark money too.
Oh yeah.
So it just, we've tried it. We tried it with AOC. They had several opportunities where they could have really fought for us and they could have proven that they were there for the people, and they did not. Some of them voted present on that Capitol Police funding bill.
Yep.
So if you really care about defunding the police and you want to help people in your community, why would you vote present on that bill? They didn't want to force the vote in the middle of a pandemic. And now we're stuck with Nancy Pelosi, who also has in turn recently has decided, I'm not going to cancel student debt because one of her donors told her not to. This is why it was very important that we got Pelosi out. And this is what I was trying to get people to understand. So for people to say, well, it was foolish because they weren't going to vote yes for it anyway, that wasn't the point. That wasn't the point of it at all. What are we supposed to do? Just sit back and pretend like everything's okay and just say, well, this is just the way it is. Let's just let things be the way that they are. No, change does not come about that way. You have to fight back. And if they're not going to do that, then maybe they should just step down. I mean, AOC told Afeni recently when she was at the Capitol that we need to organize on the outside because that's the only way the Congress and Senate is going to hear us. Now that came from AOC.
Yep.
So like, what does that tell people?
Yeah, I mean, but people are organizing, right? That's the thing. They're just not paying attention. And it has to be a mass amounts of people organizing for these people to almost, I think we're past the point of fear or past the point of playing nice, because people are literally dying. They're criminalizing poverty, all of these things. So it's like, you're absolutely right that a general strike movement does that. And you're absolutely right that doesn't happen overnight, that you need mutual aid to keep people afloat while they're not working, which is the main issue, and which is how Medicare for All would help, because it wouldn't be tied to your employment. So I wanted to specifically talk to you about the white moderate. Because MLK talked about the white moderate, and we have seen this topic come around in progressive circles. There's a lot of talk about solidarity. There's a lot of talk about, oh, yes, I'm your ally. But when it comes down to it, I think there's a very, very big difference between marginalized people, whether you're Black, Latino, or minority, and working class people, and the things they can accept, compared to people who are who have more of an avenue to get out of it, right? Who don't really see what's happening in front of them because they can ignore it. So let's talk about the white moderate then. How do you see the white moderate in today's society, and how do we deal with them?
It's so interesting because I live in the Boston area, Massachusetts. And when I moved here 10 years ago, I thought that I'm moving to a very progressive place. And after living here for 10 years, I've realized that a lot of people that say they're progressive are really just liberals, because they will have Black Lives Matter signs in their yard. They will have like these Black Lives Matter signs in the windows of their apartment. But I can't even get those same people to come with me to Roxbury or to come with me to Dorchester, which are predominantly Black neighborhoods here, to organize, to do mutual aid. Some people didn't want to come to the protest because it started in Roxbury. It's things like that. So it's like, what I notice is that they seem to like the idea of these issues. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, I agree with that. But when you ask them to come out and fight for it, either they don't want to do it or they're only willing to do so much. So a perfect example was the protest with George Floyd in DC. One of the things that Chuck Modi said was after Biden won, all the white people went home as if police brutality ended because Biden won. Yeah. So that told me that they didn't really get the core issue. So for me, when it comes to solidarity, that's about putting someone else's, issues before your own. And sometimes people mix up solidarity with unity. So if you're going to tell me that you don't think it's wrong to give the police more money, if you're going to just say, yeah, what happened to George Floyd was wrong, but you don't see the problem with for giving the police more money. You don't see the problem with the infrastructures in Black neighborhoods. You don't see the problem with the housing issue that we have right now in Boston and a lot of other cities and the homelessness issue. If you can't make those connections, that's not solidarity. And this is what I want people to really understand. It's one thing to say, yes, you're right. Police, we should defund the police. But it's another thing to turn around and say, oh, well, we need more cops because we have more crime. That's not solidarity. And it's difficult for people to understand if you haven't experienced it, you haven't lived through it. And that's what we're getting. And that's what we're seeing. So when we see people who are white moderates, and especially the ones that are very wealthy, when they tell us that we shouldn't march for Medicare for all, when they tell us, no, now's not the right time, that's not standing in solidarity. It's easy to say that when you have health care. It's easy to say that if you've never had to worry about having health care. But for those of us that desperately need these things that we're fighting for, we don't have time to wait for another person to get elected and maybe do what they say they're going to do. We just don't have that kind of time. So I think for us, it's more of a sense of urgency. And for the white moderate, it's not a sense of urgency because they already have these things that they're telling us to go out there and fight for. So they can sit back home and they can sit on their couch and they can be comfortable and just pretend like, well, this isn't really something I have to go in hard for. Yeah. And that's unfortunate.
I just wanted to piggyback on that because while we have the white moderates, we also have the Black imperialists. Right. We have people like Barack Obama. We have people that are in like the Joanne Reeds of the world also. So is this also a class issue as well? Because then you have these people that are, tokenized. And I said this on your show, I'm sick and tired of being tokenized for the benefit of the establishment when they don't do anything for us. And in fact, they make it 10,000 times worse because they still get the vote or they get, the propaganda of the vote. So is this also then an issue of the urgency comes also from class? Because at the end of the day, while race is obviously, there's a racial inequality in this country, there's also now a class inequality. It doesn't make Palestinians or people in the Middle East feel any better that we have an intersectional cabinet of people who are bombing these countries.
Absolutely. It's easy for Oprah and Tyler Perry and Obama to tell us to vote for Joe Biden. Yeah. They're Black, but they're also wealthy. I'm not on the same level as them. And I have pretty much same education as, well, maybe not as Obama, but as a lot of Black people that we see, in media that are wealthy. We have sometimes the same amount of education, but I'm not on the same level as them when we talk about class. And it's unfortunate because what I constantly hear is, well, what about LeBron? What about Oprah? They grew up poor and they made it. Look, you can be just like them. No, that's not the norm. Yeah, and I want people to understand that those people are outliers. How many people actually make it into the NBA? How many people actually get their own talk show like Oprah Winfrey? How many people end up being like Tyler Perry and have their own studio? That's rare. And so I really wish, and I noticed this growing up when I was in school, I really wish my teachers didn't tell us that. I really wish they didn't tell us, like, you can be just like Michael Jordan. You can be just like Oprah, without talking about the things that were against you and the reality of the situation. Yeah. So those, I feel like Oprah and Tyler, like Tyler Perry, I know he does like good things a lot of times, like charity wise, like for the community. But at the end of the day, they are all set. They're not struggling. They don't have to worry about healthcare. They don't have to worry about gentrification. In fact, sometimes they're part of the gentrification, if I want to be real. So this is a big problem here. People have been pushed further and further out. You can't go one block in Boston or Cambridge without seeing a new condo. It's almost expensive for anybody to live there now. So when we complain about these issues to people like Obama or like Oprah, like they'll sympathize with you and they'll nod their head. But again, at the end of the day, it's not their issue because they're all set. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Too, just piggybacking on that too, as well as Fam has been teaching me more about the bourgeois left, and how it back in the days, how it played a part. And it's like, it's playing a part big time today. But on this show, we've also discussed conservatives versus liberals, right? Is that still the discussion? Or are we now discussing how problematic some of the progressives can be? And who is worse, a conservative Republican that tells you everything about themselves, or the liberal or progressive pretending to be your friend? I mean, I think that's where the conversation has moved to. Your thoughts?
So it kind of reminds me of overt racism versus covert racism. And I've always told people that covert racism is worse from my experience, because covert racism is more hidden and it can be disguised as something else. It's little things like going to the bar and all of a sudden the bartender pretends not to see you. That happens a lot here in Boston, by the way, to Black people. It's things like that versus someone just showing you who they are and just telling you, yeah, I don't like Black people. Like, that's more easier to figure out because they're telling you who they are. So when I talk to conservatives about Medicare for all, they'll be upfront with me and say, well, yeah, I think everybody should have health care, but I don't want my tax money to go towards it. They'll be upfront about that. Liberals, they're a little bit.
Hey, come in with that smile, Sabby. Hey.
They're a little bit more, they're sneaky.
Yes.
Like they'll nod and they'll smile in your face and be like, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. People should have health care. Absolutely. But they'll vote against it.
Yeah. And
it's like, and that's one thing I think that we do have a problem with, is that Republicans, for the most part, they stick together. Because when Trump first ran, I knew people that were like, I'm not really a fan of Trump, but they're conservative. And they're like, but I vote for my party. And then we couldn't get that on our end. When I was trying to get people to vote for Bernie Sanders, I was able to convince some people, but the wealthy elites, they wanted Biden. Again, they wouldn't really tell you this either, but they didn't really want their tax money going towards Medicare for all either. They don't really like the idea of more people being on the same level financially. And for me, I am anti-capitalist and liberals are not. And it is what it is. But I tell them, like, look at what has been going on in this country. When I interviewed Professor Wolf, he talked about this. He said, I hate to tell you this, but capitalism is on the decline in America. And it's not going back up. It's going in decline. And China is rising above us. I just wish like more people could understand that. I wish like liberals would understand that. But again, if you are financially all set, you don't have to worry about student loan debt. These aren't big issues for you. So it's no big deal for you to vote for someone like Biden over Bernie or Tulsi or anyone else that was running. There was no reason, no way Joe Biden should have won.
Yeah.
No way.
You know what racism I see more nowadays that I never really noticed until I started working in this business with my partners is a person of color speaking out against the mainstream media norm that they're told to speak out of. Like how some of the bourgeois white moderates look at them like, oh my God, how could you say that? Like, you know, how could you talk out of place? They're not saying that, but that's what they mean. And I see a lot of that nowadays from a bunch of Karens going, oh my God, how dare you say something like that? And they're caught off guard because they can't deal with a person of color who has an independent mind and says what's on their mind.
They say you're helping Republicans by criticizing the establishment, which is like, you know, sit down, you're supposed to let yourself to be tokenized. Like, you're supposed to be AOC. You're not supposed to be speaking against her. Like, and I think that's what we see. You know, we recently had on Dr. Cynthia McKinney, and she's, you know, one of these people that was completely just ostracized by all of the members of Congress. They don't even talk about her anymore because she actually talked about things she wasn't allowed to talk about, like imperialism, election corruption, all these things. And like, she can't even find work in America. And it's not just because she was black. It's not just racism. It's because she was a black woman that spoke out against the tokenization of the establishment. And that is a form of racism. I 100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, so this is the thing, like when people say that intersectionality isn't like a thing, it is very much a real thing. I can tell you that, like, as a black woman, because sometimes people discriminate against me because I'm black, sometimes because I'm a female, but sometimes because I'm a black woman. And what I've learned, especially in the media space, is that they want black people to, they want you to be represented, but they want you to stay in your lane. They want you to use their talking points. They don't want you to really tell people how you really feel. If you can do that, like Obama did, like Joy Reid does, oh, they'll love you. They'll promote you and everything else. But when you come out and you speak the way that like Niko speaks, or, you know, you speak the way that like we do on FHL, that's not what they want to hear. It's really sad, but in a way, they kind of just want you to just smile, nod, and be happy that you were given the opportunity to begin with, and just forget about the fact that people in your community are struggling.
Do you think that members of the squad have good intentions, or do you think that they're in it for themselves at this point, you know, for their careers? And does that even matter, right, when we're discussing like the needs of the working class?
So I can tell people about Ayanna Pressley because I don't know if everyone knows this, but she actually was on city council in Boston before she went to Congress. And in city council, she actually did make significant changes. She was the one that fought for the liquor licenses in Black communities, because a lot of the Black bars and restaurants and lounges here in Boston, that was a struggle. The city didn't want to give out more liquor licenses. So if you don't have the liquor license, then that's going to affect your revenue. How are you going to make money if you're a lounge and you're limited to what you can do in reference to alcohol? So she actually fought for that. She drove that, and the city overturned it and gave out those liquor licenses. So I've seen her be a fighter locally. I don't know what happened when she got into Congress. I did expect to hear from her more because I knew how she was here. But I think a big part of it is, again, like being ostracized for not following the way that the Democratic Party works. And I think AOC has experienced some of that as well. I can't speak too much for Cori Bush. I mean, sometimes I feel like she's fighting, then sometimes I feel like she's a little timid to do so. Jamal Bowman, forget it. That one is a big disappointment to me. I'm like, come on, dude, really? Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of pressure when they go into Congress. This is not to excuse them, because they were put there to fight against that pressure. And this is why one of the things I told people, I would never run for office, like for Congress or Senate or anything like that, because I already know. I know what DC is like. And I don't think they expected it to be as fierce and competitive as it is. But the idea was that when they went in, they were not supposed to be career politicians. They were supposed to be there to kind of, act like the Tea Party and to push for like leftist issues. They're not doing that. And I think that once they got comfortable and realized, hey, I can make a career out of this and I can get a pension. You only need 5 years, you get the pension. Yeah. So I can get a pension, I can get speaking fees. This will be great for my family. And so then they fit in with the mold.
Yeah. Some people believe that they were there before they got in. They were already doing the job they were supposed to do. In other words,
I don't think it's everybody. I mean,
some
I think
people,
it's
I
certain.
said, some people do. AO, CIA, they say that stuff.
AOC.
But here's the point, fam. What does it even matter anymore? It doesn't even make a difference what came first, the chicken or the egg. They're not doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Goodbye. You're out. That's it. And I don't want to even try to trust them again to think that they'll do the right thing. They've done enough damage by not doing what they were supposed to do and why they were put there that it doesn't even make a difference what came first, the chicken or the egg. What do you think is missing from leftist discourse, Sabby?
Oh boy, a lot of things. How much time do you have? The biggest one, and this is changing now because the space is changing, but the biggest one is talking about Black issues and putting them at, the forefront of the discussion and policies that we are challenging people for. Because, and the reason why I say that is that during the 2020 debates, one of the things that was interesting to me, it was like Marianne Williamson was the only one that had a reparations plan. And that was her number one thing. And nobody else had it. And I think Bernie tried to go back later on and was like, let me add some stuff, but it was too late. And we had already heard, that he didn't really have one. And I just think that you can't put our issues at the bottom of the list. That's just not going to work. It's just not. So issues about putting reparations, that should be at the top of your platform. The other thing is that we need to address is the school system. And I work in education, so this one's a big one for me. We have to stop funding public schools from property taxes. It's inherently racist. The Black communities struggle because of that. They suffer because of it, because obviously most of the money is in the white suburban neighborhoods. So schools in Black neighborhoods are automatically just under-resourced and underfunded. I couldn't even tell you some of the things I've seen, some of the schools that I've walked into. And that affects a lot of things. And you have the school to prison pipeline system. So when I talk about reparations, I don't think reparations should just be a check. I think you need to fix the public school system. I think you need to get rid of wage discrimination, which exists racially and also in reference to gender. Men are paid more than women. I've seen this multiple times, the same job, same experience. These are a lot of things that you need to fix, the systemic issues. And so, unfortunately, now I say all that, but I hate to say it, but I feel like the squad has kind of ruined this for any other progressive that is going to run, because they've already shown us what a disappointment they were. And I know there's people out there running right now. They have good intentions. They really want to get in there and fight. But I'm not excited. And I was excited. I used to be excited. I was excited for Bernie. I was excited when the members of the squad were running. And I feel like the squad, I feel like they killed that. They destroyed that for me. And so people bring up Nina Turner. There was this whole rift and rant about that. I donated to Nina Turner a little bit, what I could do. But to be honest with you, I felt like I should have been more excited than I was. And I felt like the squad took that away. They just killed that for me. So I think that the left, if they want to do things electorally, they're going to have to find a way to, number one, you got to bring Black issues to the forefront, can't be at the bottom of the list. And number two, you have to find a way to excite people again, because people aren't excited.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about what reparations means to you. I mean, it's obviously more than a check. One of the things that when you talk about reparations that some liberals and some conservatives are afraid about is the working class is all suffering. I'm poor, blah, blah, blah. So how do you deal with that counterpoint where they're like, well, why am I paying reparations? And I'm working class. Should reparations, the money, so let's say that there is money involved, should that come from the very, very top? Should that come from the government? Should that come from a form of taxation to the very top? How does that work? And also, how would a system like that also happen electorally when the United States was built upon the extermination of Native Americans and slavery, and we still now have those same issues on top of course, everybody being poor. Now, there's no generational wealth for the millennial generation and for Gen Z. We can't buy houses. This is so all of these problems have mounted, right? How do we deal with reparations and also the lack of wealth in the working class?
Absolutely. So I think in reference to reparations, in order for this to be done electorally, you're going to really have, the government needs to pay for this because it's a debt that's owed. So when people say like, why should I pay reparations? I wasn't around when slavery happened. Neither was I, but it's a debt that was owed. General Sherman promised that Black people would get 40 acres and a mule. That could have changed the racial wealth gap in this country. So because Black people didn't start off with property when slaves were free, didn't start off with all this property. And yes, there were some Black Wall Streets, but there were few, and then they were burned down. So because we didn't start out with property and land, that's a big part of your net worth. And one of the things I tell people is that there's a big difference between income and net worth. Net worth is what you own minus what you already owe. So for my generation, we are screwed because a lot of us have a lot of student loan debt. So you have to subtract that from what we own. And then you come up with our net worth. So Black people, Black families didn't have land and property to pass down generation after generation. There's a cartoon, I've shown this on my show before. It's called The Unequal Opportunity Race. And it's a race where there's a Black girl, Black guy, and then there's white people running, and they're running around the track, and white people are running and the years are just going by, and Black people don't get to start running till like 1964. And so it just shows like all the things that Black people had to go through to try to catch up just to be equal, and all the systemic things that were thrown in the way: housing discrimination, school to prison pipeline, all of these different things. So that's how I explain that to people, because I've heard people say that. They're like, well, I wasn't back then, so why should I? It's a debt that's owed that was not paid. And it's really interesting to me too, because some of my friends that are Jewish, they've told me how like, I'm going to Israel for my birthright. And they had to explain to me what that was, because I was like, what is this happening? She was like, yeah, we get to go to Israel like as part of our birthright. I think you have to do it by a certain age. Black people don't get to go to Africa. It's just like, we don't get, like Germany paid reparations to the Jewish people, Jewish organizations. What has this country done to help Black people? Even like, we're not even asking to be in the front. We're not asking to be ahead. We're just asking to be equal. Yeah. They haven't done it. They've never done it. And it's just, we're constantly trying to find a way to keep up and to get where we should be equally. And when I talk about reparations, one of the reasons why I mentioned the wage discrimination is because I've seen this time and time again too. You'll have a white guy, Black woman come and interview for the same job, same years of experience. For whatever reason, they'll offer the white guy significantly more than what they offer the Black female. So Black women are underpaid, often underpaid. It doesn't make any sense. And if they could stop that, fix the wage gap, then that could also help fix if they could help fix the wage discrimination, that could help fix the racial wealth gap in this country. Companies don't even want to do that. It's just ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. And so for me, I think the government needs to pay for it because it's a debt that's owed that was never fulfilled. And I know some people are against reparations, and in reference to like our generation, like those of us struggling with like student loans and people can't buy houses and things like that, you might have to add a UBI to this. And I go back and forth on the UBI, especially after I talk to people with MMT, because they were the ones that told me, they said, well, here's the thing. If we do a UBI, then businesses can increase their prices, because they know you have that extra money now. Landlords can raise the rent more because they know you have the extra money now. So then we need some type of rent stability. We may even have to go back to rent control. We asked like Governor Baker, we asked him for rent control, bring rent control back. We asked like former Mayor Marty Walsh, bring rent control back. Their response was, we can't do it. They didn't give a reason why.
Yeah. When it comes to reparations too, I'm putting together, I just reached out to JB Font, spoke to him about doing a show about that, a panel. I can't wait to have these conversations about solidarity and whatnot. But one point of the reparations I want to talk about real quick that you just mentioned. A lot of people kind of like, well, it's coming out of the government, it's coming out of the tax funds. They say that same line, well, I wasn't there. This is, my forefathers. Shouldn't a lot of the reparations come from the people who benefited from it years ago. All these major corporations back in the days, that had the cotton fields and whatnot, they're the ones who benefited. So when Fiorella said, that 1%, those family lines who really benefited, shouldn't they bear the majority of the cost to pay for reparations, and some coming from the government? I mean, we know the White House, the Capitol was all built by slaves and whatnot, and there are some, the 40 acres and the mule, they didn't get that as well. But the people who profited off, off of slavery, shouldn't they bear the majority of the brunt to pay for these reparations? I mean, the work was made, work was done, it needs to be paid for. Shouldn't they pay?
Yep. That's another good example too. I mean, corporations could pay for it too. I don't think that would happen. I think that they would find ways to hide their money like they've been doing before. Jeff Bezos is a great example of that. And again, I hate to say it, but that goes back to the whole general strike. This is why I tell people, I know some people are afraid to quit their jobs because, look, if I could quit, I'd quit right now. A lot of people know I hate my job. I hate my job. But if I don't have my job, then I don't have health insurance. So I'm tied. It's like it ties you in, and health insurance isn't even that great. So it ties you in. But another way that you could hit back at them is stop buying their shit. Just stop it. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, cancel it. If you always go to Walmart, and just stop shopping there. Do things like we didn't always have Amazon. We didn't always shop online. But I'm seeing people like Jeff Bezos has houses around the country, and I'm seeing Chris Smalls and other activists going and protesting at his houses across the country. This man does not care. And I'm seeing him try to go to space.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
We had a penis-shaped rocket launched out before we had healthcare for everybody, reparations, anything like that, right? It's I want to ask this question, Jonny. I don't know if you have any questions, but I want to ask this question, wrapping up here, a couple of questions. Why Fred Hampton? What in particular attracted you to Fred Hampton, and how can we use his teachings today?
One of the things I think that was great about Fred Hampton was that he saw that the government wasn't doing what they should do to help people in his community. So he was like, screw this. I'm going to help people in my community. The fact that he was feeding kids in his neighborhood. They were opening clinics in his neighborhood. And again, the government should be doing these things, but they weren't because there were Black neighborhoods and they didn't care about them. So he was so young. Imagine being able to do all that at that age. I can't even tell you what I was doing when I was 21 years old, or 20 years old. So wasn't doing so he saw that there was a problem. He saw the government wasn't doing what they should do. So instead of complaining about it, he took the lead and said, I'm going to help fix these things along with Black Panthers. And I think that's something that we should try to look at doing more often. Sometimes I know we all you could complain about the problems and the issues, but I think sometimes we may sit back and point a finger and say, man, I'll be great when someone comes along one day and does this. And sometimes that someone may be you. And so the fact that he was so young and he just did it, didn't even question it, just did it and took a chance and said, I'm going to help fix these problems in my community. That just says a lot to me.
He's one of the, that's all I got to say. We have 2 Fred Hampton pictures up in our living room. We also have one of Obama talking about the big sleep. The big sleep, how he put us all to sleep. Sabby, I got the same feel. He was the first person. He gave me hope. I was ready. I knocked on doors, and he was the first politician to really just let me down so hard that I cried. I was like, what the hell did we get ourselves into? Jonny, anything for Sabby Sabs?
Okay, well,
so thank you.
Okay.
Jonny says thank you. He wanted to thank you too as well. What's your last name? How do you say it?
Salvati.
Is that an Italian last name?
Yep.
That's right.
Sabby, I just wanted to also, along Fred Hampton, just finish up with the Rainbow Coalition. What is that? How can we implement something like that now where, in his famous speech when he's talked about, I don't care if you're a black, white, yellow, whatever, you know, we're all suffering under the system. I think that's very prevalent now, especially with the wealth inequality. And it's also about equity too, like not even having the chance to fight because people, you know, are so tied down by their jobs. How can we learn from the Rainbow Coalition and apply that to today's crazy political environment?
I think we need to focus on building a labor movement in this country. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean let me go find all the other lefties who want to fight with me, because that's not going to give us many people. We're not as big as we think we are. So that means you may have to talk to people who are conservatives. That means you may have to talk to people that you don't really like, or, you know, we need to make this diverse. We need to reach out to people who really want to fight and look at what's going on in Alabama. Like Nick and I were talking about this, the same things they were fighting for and they're asking for. And Nick's like, they're conservative and they're asking for the same things that we're asking for. So maybe we need to start talking to other people who are not necessarily in our circle. And I think we'll find that when it comes to like the labor, when it comes to like work ethics and things that we want as employees in this country, we might have more in common than we think.
That's right, Sabs.
Wise words, Sabby.
Right.
It was a pleasure having you on. These are wonderful conversations. I can't wait for that panel. I think that would be a great panel. That needs to be talked about so more. We need to hear from the people who know most about it. Thanks for coming on. Can you plug in your show, where to find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube. The name of my show is Sabs. I'm also on Rokfin, and you can find me on Fred Hampton Leftist.
Thank you, Sabs. We love you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Let me just do one more time. Sabs. Love you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Man.
Wow. What a great conversation.
Yes.
That was a wonderful conversation.
I need like 2 minutes, though, real quick. Can I get that, Johnny? Can I get a be back soon?
Yeah, I can.
We got to get people over to Rokfin. That's the first thing that we have to do.
Yeah, we're going to get people to Rokfin, Johnny. And
you want to read Super
I was going to read
or?
some Super Rays, yeah.
Yeah, you can do that.
Huh? Yeah, I can read the Super Rays. So.
Instead, okay, read the Super. I'm going to step out 2 seconds.
Alrighty, so I'm going to start on the Super Rays. Is it right here? Okay.
Now make sure you hit that always appreciated on the couch.
No, thanks. I'm going to put my glasses on. I can't see. All right. Where are we at here? Okay. Thanks, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Roar Media, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Sabrina Salvati is a terrific guest. She shows the kindness and character of commitment that we appreciate in all of our fams. Thank you, Sabby. She is a great guest, and you can see the kindness just coming out of her. Hunter C, we love the Convo Couch fam. We love you too, Hunter. Good luck on your show. Summer of 1970, thank you for the Super 8. Keep fighting, guys. We need you more than ever. Sovo Vavix. I literally just ruined that. Dr. Peter McCullough, you know, the doctor that spoke before Congress, new video out. He's now calling this a Depop genocide with Bill Gates and Fauci at the center of it. Okay, he left a link. We should check out that link. Of course, we will do that. Okay. Accidental Activist. Love me some Sabs. Great job, fam. Thank you so much. Shonda, we really love you too. I'm happy you will be doing your show. Let's see. I think that's all of them. Thank you so much, guys, for leaving a Super Rate. Yeah, what a great discussion. I look forward to this panel that Pasta was talking about. I think that needs to absolutely be talked about more, especially the voices that are honestly left out most of the time, or like she was right. Like before Niko, there was some black, and then that's it. Like there weren't that many black podcasters, and even now, like there's just so many like white male YouTubers. And I don't think like it's like, oh, I'm like hyper focused on that, but it is like a thing. And also it's a class thing. Journalism used to be the profession of the working class, and now journalism is a bunch of elitists who come from like generational wealth. If you look at even the progressive movement and the progressive independent journalists, a lot of them come from that, that very, very upper class type of family, and they have obviously different experiences. Like even if they try to understand what somebody like, you know, Sabby or us are going through, they're not going to necessarily understand because they're not working class. And I think that definitely puts a veil in front of your eyes where you don't really get to see that. And this is what, you know, I love RHOne Media. They always try to highlight women's voices. And it's not just leading with identity politics. I want to make that clear, because a lot of sometimes, you know, in an effort to be anti-liberal, a lot of the progressives kind of like throw out the baby with the bathwater, say, oh, identity politics is this. Identity politics is like when you say Kamala Harris is wonderful because she's black and Indian, right? That's identity politics. That doesn't mean that there isn't any inequality at all. And it's also not that it's not tied to, of course, class, which is what we were talking about. And what a great guest, fam.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait to, JB Font reached out to me. I'm going to also reach out to Compton J. I was putting together a little panel to talk about reparations. I was actually reaching out to some people in different other circles, whatnot. And I'm trying to get some people on to see what's going to happen. So I just want to have a great talk about solidarity, reparations, and all those things. And I think I just might just do one with hopefully maybe both Jays and have a conversation too as well. So yeah, I've had that on the back burner, and I'm going to get ready to do that soon too as well, because it's a conversation we need to have about what's going on. There was work that was done. It needs to be paid for. End of story. Now, where it comes from, who should pay it, that should be a discussion.
That's probably like the bigger
should it be at the top of the food chain, like Sabby says, or should we be concentrating on more of a class issue that would bring more people together, maybe? Because I think a lot of people, especially white people from the South or white people from Middle America, they hear the reparations and they say, like what you said, well, I'm starving and suffering too. This is what our forefathers did. Why do I have to be responsible for them? So we have to have these discussions, and I think more of these discussions will bring people together and understand that.
I agree.
Yeah, so those are the discussions that need to be had, and I can't wait to have them.
Yeah. So guys, we're going to go to Rokfin only. These are two very important segments. They're not that long, but they're important for you guys to understand. Yesterday, there were a bunch of idiots making fun of the drug, right? The drug that a lot of us used. And that Jimmy Dore also used to help with his side effects. And here it is. Johnny's going to put it on camera, right? That's the human version. They were saying that it was only for horses and for animals, and they were mocking it. People like Jordan Sheraton, people like Ken Chippenstein or Fedstein. And, you know, I'm not going to go into that, but he is a complete and total, like, just just shit.
Scumbag.
He's a scumbag.
He's a scumbag.
Misty said it right.
Yeah,
He's a scumbag. And I'm just going to say, look, like, if you come from a place where you've never had to actually oppose, like, the status quo, the establishment, of course you easily always side with them. These people are very sneaky. Just like, this is what I'm talking about. And it's not just about race. It's about class. These people come from a higher class, that I just said, and they have never had to really fear law enforcement or these state agencies. They work in tandem with them and as a facade of like opposition. The Intercept, of course, gave up whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Do not ever trust the Intercept ever again. I mean, that should have been the end of them. But then you have Ryan Grimm and
he said he's proud of the Intercept, what they do
right.
with whistleblowers.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, this is why so many people were mad when Chelsea Manning even gave accolades to Ken, right? Because it's like, do you know who like this guy is? And so then they have this platform with a lot of power, and they have the blue checks, and they come after and they punch down, and they completely misrepresent things that are you know, that about the, you know, of the medicine, and like it's used for humans. It has been used for decades. So we're going to debunk their whole bullshit.
Yep.
And we're also going to talk about the money ties between Pfizer and also the FDA, because if you follow the money, guys, when it comes to politics, when it comes to, you know, money, dirty money and all this stuff, and then you stop following the money when it comes to this particular issue, you're not really being consistent and you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yep. We're also going to talk a little personal experience too as well and kind of tie it all in together.
Yep.
You know, I always have this kind of little saying, meet him on the battlefield. When it comes to this situation and what we're going to talk about right now, we were talking about it over a year ago. And I'm not bragging about that, but now we have to circle the wagons because now people are talking about it. And the main forces against this particular pharmaceutical are so strong and they're coming out in full force that now we have to circle the wagons and meet people on the battlefield and talk about it. So we're going to leave all the other platforms. Goodbye, Fee Twitter. Goodbye. Hold on.
And like mainstream media is saying all of this in unison. And these people who supposedly oppose mainstream media.
Goodbye, Facebook.
They're swallowing it right. They're using mainstream media sources like Jordan Sheridan putting up a New York Times article.